Every decision you make writes a line in the story of your destiny. One wrong choice can steal years of your life. One right choice can create a fortune, a legacy, a life beyond your wildest dreams. The question is, are you choosing wisely or gambling with your future? Ladies and gentlemen, right now, at this very moment, you are standing at the crossroads of your future. You might not see it, you might not feel it, but every thought you entertain, every choice you make, every action you take is setting into motion a chain of events that will either lift you into greatness or bury you in regret. The difference between a life of extraordinary success and a life of quiet desperation is often just one choice, one decision made in courage instead of fear, one act of discipline instead of laziness, one commitment to grow instead of surrendering to comfort. That is why I urge you, stay with me until the end of this message, because what I'm about to reveal isn't just advice, it's the very architecture of destiny. Miss even one piece and you may find yourself making the same costly mistakes that millions before you have made. But apply what you hear and you will find yourself crafting a life that others will envy, a life you will be proud to live. Now let's begin. The power of definiteness of purpose is the cornerstone upon which all lasting success is built. It is not merely about having a vague wish or a fleeting desire. It is the unshakable clarity of mind that knows exactly what it wants and refuses to be swayed by obstacles, distractions, or the opinions of others. A man without a definite aim drifts like a ship without a rudder, tossed by every wave of circumstance and blown off course by every shifting wind of opportunity. But a man with definiteness of purpose moves with the certainty of a river cutting through rock. He may meet resistance, but he never stops moving toward his destination. When the mind is focused sharply upon a single aim, it summons forces seen and unseen to its aid. Resources appear, opportunities unfold. People are drawn in, almost as if by magnetic force, to assist in the realization of that aim. The world, chaotic as it may seem, secretly conspires in favor of the determined. Consider the story of Thomas Edison, who set out with a single burning desire to create an electric light that would replace the gas lamps of the day. It was a ludicrous idea to many. Technology was unproven, the failures were countless, and the cost was staggering. Yet Edison's definiteness of purpose was unwavering. He did not tinker randomly, hoping to stumble upon a solution. He set his mind with absolute clarity. He would invent the electric light, and he would not rest until he did. Over 10,000 experiments ended in failure, but Edison did not see these as defeats. Each was a step forward, a piece of knowledge gained, a refinement of his method. Had he wavered, had he diluted his aim with doubt or divided his focus among lesser ambitions, history would never have remembered his name. It was not superior intellect alone that secured his triumph. It was the stubborn, relentless burning force of a clear, definite purpose pursued with single-minded determination, more than many failures. Similarly, in the life of every great achiever, whether in business, the arts, sports, or science, the same principle reveals itself: a laser-like focus on a major, definite aim. Andrew Carnegie, at a young age, fixed his mind upon becoming the king of the steel industry. He was not content with a modest fortune or a comfortable living. He wanted dominance, and he organized every effort, every association, every resource toward that one colossal purpose. He rejected distractions, delegated lesser tasks, and moved with calculated speed toward his goal. The reason so many lives end in quiet frustration is because the individuals leading them have no clear purpose to rally their energies around. They scatter their efforts across 1,000 minor interests, never giving any single aim enough energy to bear fruit. Nature herself respects definiteness. A sunbeam scattered is warm, but a sunbeam focused through a magnifying glass can ignite fire. Without definiteness of purpose, life becomes a series of accidents rather than a planned campaign. The mind becomes vulnerable to the influence of others who do have a purpose, and instead of leading one's own life, one becomes an unwitting follower of another's ambition. Defining a purpose acts as a guide through the wilderness of distraction and doubt, carving a straight path through the noise of competing priorities. It filters out the unnecessary, giving the individual the ability to say no to what does not serve the goal. It breeds persistence, for when the goal is vividly imagined and deeply desired, the inevitable failures and hardships are met not with defeat, but with renewed vigor. Those without a definite aim surrender easily, for they have no deep reason to endure the pain required for achievement. The danger of indecision is one of the most silent and devastating forces that can erode a man's potential without him even realizing it. Indecision creeps in like a slow poison, paralyzing action, draining confidence, and ultimately robbing individuals of their opportunities. Every moment spent wavering between options is a moment lost forever, a chance that slips silently into the graveyard of regret. Life moves swiftly, and it offers its greatest prizes not to the cautious doubters who stand paralyzed at the crossroads, but to those who step forward with conviction. Indecision breeds hesitation, and hesitation allows fear to take root, magnifying imagined dangers until the opportunity itself seems too risky, too uncertain, too fraught with peril to pursue. In truth, most of the failures of life are the direct result of choosing nothing at all rather than choosing wrongly. The world rewards action, movement, and commitment. It punishes stagnation with obscurity and loss. Consider the historical example of General George B. McClellan during the American Civil War. Gifted with exceptional organizational skills, McClellan built one of the finest armies the United States had ever seen. His men adored him, his troops were superbly trained and outfitted, yet McClellan was fatally plagued by indecision. Time and time again, when the moment to strike came, he hesitated, asking for more men, more supplies, more certainty. While he deliberated, opportunities slipped away, battles were lost without being fought, and countless lives were sacrificed to his inability to act decisively. Eventually, McClellan's indecision cost him his command and tarnished his once promising legacy. His name serves as a stark reminder that brilliance and preparation mean little without the courage to decide and to act. This same danger plays out in everyday life, far beyond the battlefield. In business, the entrepreneur who waits endlessly for the perfect moment to launch his idea often finds that someone braver, though perhaps less prepared, seizes the market instead. But in reality, it is not the wrong choice that damages most people. It is the choice they refuse to make at all. Indecision locks a person in a perpetual cycle of analysis and fear, draining precious energy and making forward movement impossible. The mind, when trained to avoid decision-making, loses its sharpness, and what was once vibrant ambition dulls into a passive acceptance of mediocrity. History and human nature alike demonstrate that every significant achievement is preceded by a definite decision. The great industrialists, inventors, explorers, and leaders were not men who waited until all conditions were perfect. They decided, often without having all the answers, and trusted their ability to adapt and overcome along the way. They understood that decisions, even imperfect ones, create momentum, and momentum breeds progress. By contrast, indecision freezes potential at the starting line, ensuring that no race is ever run and no victory ever claimed. It breeds a habit of second-guessing, doubt, and eventual self-sabotage. The habit of indecision, once formed, infects every area of life, personal, professional, financial, and emotional, leaving an individual trapped in an endless loop of what-ifs and missed chances. The influence of your environment is one of the most powerful yet often underestimated forces shaping your thoughts, decisions, habits, and ultimately your destiny. A person might possess ambition, intelligence, and talent, but if they remain rooted in a poisonous environment, their potential is slowly and inevitably strangled. The environment is not merely the physical space one occupies, it is the collective atmosphere created by the people, the conversations, the ideas, the beliefs, and even the subtle attitudes that surround an individual daily. It seeps into the subconscious mind, planting seeds of possibility or seeds of limitation, depending on its nature. A man surrounded by doubters, cynics, and the perpetually fearful will find his boldest dreams slowly eroded by an endless chorus of, "You can't, it's too risky," and "Be realistic." Without even realizing it, he begins to adopt the fears, the small thinking, and the stagnation of those around him. On the other hand, when an individual places himself in an environment of visionaries, doers, and believers, he finds that new ideas ignite in his mind like dry tinder catching fire, and ambitions he once hesitated to pursue now seem not only possible, but inevitable. An illustrative example of this truth can be found in the life of Henry Ford. Ford was not born into wealth or privilege. He grew up on a farm, expected to live a simple life like generations before him. Yet he harbored a fascination for machines, for innovation, for creating something beyond the predictable drudgery of farm work. It was not until he immersed himself in the bustling industrial environment of Detroit, where the spirit of invention and enterprise was alive and contagious, that his dreams began to crystallize into a tangible vision. Surrounded by tinkerers, entrepreneurs, and engineers, Ford found an atmosphere that did not mock his ambition, but fueled it. He listened, learned, collaborated, and challenged himself against minds that were also striving toward greatness. Had he remained isolated in the rural environment of his youth, it is almost certain that the Ford Motor Company, the assembly line innovation, and the revolution he brought to transportation would never have existed. His success was not simply the product of internal genius. It was the result of placing that genius within a nurturing, challenging, and inspiring environment. The influence of environment extends even to those who seem most self-assured and independent. Consider athletes who train with champions. Their skills elevate not merely because of personal dedication, but because the environment demands it. A mediocre boxer who trains daily with world champions cannot remain mediocre for long. He is either forced to rise to the level of excellence around him or driven out by the sheer intensity of the atmosphere. In contrast, the most talented individual in a lazy, indifferent environment often sees his talents wasted, dulled by the lack of challenge and ambition surrounding him. Environment is like the soil in which a seed is planted. Even the finest seed cannot flourish in barren, toxic ground. In fertile, nourishing soil, however, even a modest seed can grow into a towering tree. Thus, an individual seeking to choose wisely in life must first choose wisely the environment in which they live, work, and dream. The law of cause and effect stands as one of the most unbreakable principles governing not just the physical universe, but every aspect of human life. Every action, every thought, every decision, no matter how seemingly small or insignificant, sets into motion a chain of consequences that are as certain as the pull of gravity. Success is never an accident, and failure is never a mystery. Both are the natural outcomes of causes planted long before their effects become visible. Those who fail to recognize this law often live in confusion and frustration, believing that luck, chance, or fate controls their lives, when in truth it is their own choices, their causes that are building their destiny day by day. A wise individual understands that every thought entertained, every word spoken, every habit formed, every relationship cultivated, every risk taken or avoided, every book read or ignored, every minute used wisely or wasted. All of these are seen in time. Whether tomorrow or 10 years from now, the harvest appears, bearing the unmistakable fruit of the original cause. And a goodie. A vivid example of the law of cause and effect can be seen in the life of Colonel Harlan Sanders, the founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken. For decades, Sanders worked a variety of jobs: farmhand, streetcar conductor, railroad fireman, and insurance salesman. None of these positions brought him wealth or lasting success. But what Sanders continually did, almost unconsciously at first, was develop an extraordinary talent for cooking and a relentless commitment to perfecting his fried chicken recipe. These causes, honing his craft, insisting on quality, refusing to accept mediocrity, were planted over years of toil, often under the harshest conditions. When he finally found himself at the age of 65 with nothing but a Social Security check to his name, many would have seen only defeat. Yet the invisible causes he had nurtured for decades were about to bear fruit. He set out on the road, visiting restaurants, offering his recipe, facing rejection after rejection, but persisting. Eventually, his chicken was embraced, and what had seemed like an overnight success was simply the visible effect of a lifetime of preparation and perseverance. The cause had been planted long ago. The effect merely waited for the right moment to reveal itself. The law of cause and effect also reveals itself mercilessly in those who neglect it. A man who spends years making excuses, avoiding risks, indulging in procrastination and blaming circumstances will one day awaken to find himself surrounded by failure, not because life was unfair to him, but because the causes he sowed demanded such a harvest. The effects are not punishments. They are the natural, mechanical outcomes of the seeds he chose to plant. And firstly, an individual who, even in obscurity and struggle, chooses to think boldly, to work diligently, to sharpen his skills, to act with integrity, and to persist through discouragement, is creating causes that will inevitably yield success, even if no outward signs are yet visible. The universe itself, through the silent and relentless operation of this law, ensures that no labor of value is wasted and no act of laziness goes without consequence. The law of cause and effect strips away the comforting illusions of luck and fate and places supreme power and responsibility back into the hands of the individual. It makes clear that you are never a victim of circumstances, but a creator of them, through the causes you set into motion every day. Even the most seemingly random events are not truly random. They are the natural and often delayed results of previous causes. Just as a farmer does not plant thorns and expect roses, a person cannot sow indifference, negativity, or passivity and expect to reap joy, success, or abundance. Understanding this principle transforms the way a person views every decision, every habit, every moment, because he realizes that today's invisible seeds are tomorrow's visible realities. When this law is embraced fully, life becomes not a gamble, but a deliberate construction of results. Fear and faith are the two invisible forces that dominate every act of decision-making, each pulling the mind in opposite directions. When a decision must be made, it is never merely the facts that determine the outcome. It is whether fear or faith holds greater influence over the soul at that critical moment. Fear whispers of loss, failure, humiliation, and regret, magnifying every possible danger until the boldest ambitions seem reckless and the most promising opportunities seem fraught with insurmountable risks. Fear chains the mind to inaction, cloaking its paralysis in the false guise of caution and prudence. Faith, on the other hand, is the unseen hand that lifts the mind above its immediate doubts and dares it to believe in possibilities that cannot yet be seen. Faith does not require proof before it moves. It demands only conviction and the courage to act without guarantees. In the battle between fear and faith, every human being forges their destiny. For the decisions made under the influence of fear lead inexorably to stagnation, while those made under the guidance of faith lead to growth, discovery, and triumph. An example that brings this truth to life is the story of Walt Disney. In the early days of his career, Disney faced a string of crushing failures, bankruptcies, betrayals by business partners, and projects that collapsed after years of work. Each failure presented a crossroads where fear could have easily dictated his next move. Financial ruin stared him in the face more than once, and yet each time Disney chose faith over fear. When he envisioned Disneyland, a dream so vast and improbable that even seasoned businessmen called him insane, Disney had every reason to give in to fear. Banks laughed him out of their offices. Friends cautioned him to abandon the idea before he lost everything. But Disney acted with a boldness that only faith can produce. He pressed forward, mortgaging his personal assets, negotiating relentlessly, and pursuing his vision despite the world's scorn. The empire he eventually built, a multi-billion-dollar legacy of creativity and wonder, stands today as a monument not merely to imagination, but to the power of decisions made with unwavering faith rather than paralyzing fear. In daily life, the same battle between fear and faith governs even the smallest decisions. An individual who hesitates to pursue a business opportunity because he fears failure is allowing fear to govern his future. A woman who stays in a lifeless job because she doubts her ability to succeed elsewhere is casting her vote for fear over faith. Fear seduces the mind into accepting a lesser reality than the one it could claim, while faith challenges it to step beyond the borders of the known into the realm of possibility. Fear demands certainty before it acts, and thus seldom acts at all. Faith requires only the belief that the path will unfold as one moves forward. This difference explains why two people, presented with the same opportunity, can experience entirely different outcomes. One shrinks back and remains unchanged, while the other leaps forward and changes the course of his life forever. Fear is often disguised as logic, dressed up in the language of realism and safety, but beneath its respectable exterior lies the silent thief of dreams. Faith, by contrast, often looks foolish in its early stages because it dares to see a finished picture where others see only a blank canvas. Great fortunes, great inventions, great relationships, and great personal transformations have always been the result of faith-fueled decisions. Those who allow fear to guide them are seldom wrong in the technical sense. They avoid many risks and dodge many immediate failures, but they also avoid the rare and golden chances that would have led them to the heights they once secretly wished to attain. Faith gives a man the audacity to act before the perfect conditions arrive, knowing that perfection is a myth and that action itself creates new possibilities. Fear demands guarantees, promises of success without pain or difficulty, and since such guarantees do not exist, fear leaves a man forever waiting, forever doubting, forever falling short of the life he might have lived. Mastery through daily discipline is the timeless path by which all greatness is achieved, the quiet, steady force behind every extraordinary accomplishment. Talent, ambition, and inspiration may ignite the initial spark, but it is discipline, the relentless commitment to daily, purposeful action that sustains the fire. Discipline is the bridge between dreams and reality, between potential and achievement. It is not glamorous, and it is rarely celebrated in the moment. It requires doing the work long after the passion has faded and when no applause is given. Those who master anything, whether it is music, business, athletics, or leadership, do so not by occasional bursts of effort, but by the slow, deliberate accumulation of victories over their own laziness, fear, and impatience. Each day's effort may seem insignificant on its own, a mere drop in the ocean, but compounded over weeks, months, and years, daily discipline transforms ordinary lives into extraordinary legacies. A vivid example of this truth can be found in the life of Kobe Bryant. Known as one of the greatest basketball players in history, Bryant was not merely a product of natural athleticism, he was a product of daily, almost fanical discipline. His legendary Mamba mentality was built on the principle that mastery could only be attained through relentless, structured effort. Long before the world saw him lifting championship trophies, Bryant was on the court before dawn, taking thousands of shots, practicing the same moves over and over until they became second nature. He conditioned his body with ruthless intensity and sharpened his skills with an obsessive attention to detail. Every game-winning shot, every highlight reel performance was merely the visible effect of thousands of invisible hours spent in disciplined preparation. His success was inevitable not because he was chosen by destiny, but because he chose, daily and without compromise, to honor the demands of mastery. This principle is not confined to the realm of sports. In the world of writing, a figure like Ernest Hemingway demonstrates the same truth. Hemingway approached his craft with a surgeon's discipline, setting a strict routine of writing every morning, often producing only a few hundred words, but doing so with fierce regularity. He did not wait for inspiration to strike. He summoned it through disciplined action. By committing to a steady, daily output, he created works that would endure for generations. The masterpieces that bear his name were not born in flashes of brilliance, but in the grind of repeated effort, the constant refinement of his sentences, and the ceaseless dedication to his art. Daily discipline acts as a sculptor's chisel, slowly carving away the excess and revealing the masterpiece hidden within. Without it, potential remains trapped, never seeing the light of day. Greatness is not reserved for the most gifted or the most fortunate. It belongs to those who have the courage to do the unremarkable work over and over until the results become remarkable. Discipline is a silent ally, unseen and often unappreciated by others, but it is the ally that never betrays. It trains the mind to push beyond excuses, to value long-term gains over short-term comfort, and to transform fleeting motivation into enduring commitment. Those who master daily discipline master themselves, and in mastering themselves, they gain the power to shape the world around them according to their vision and will. My friends, your life is not a lottery ticket. It is a masterpiece waiting to be painted by the brush strokes of your daily decisions. Choose wisely, choose boldly, choose with faith, and the life you dream of will not just visit you, it will become your reality. The future is not something you wait for, it is something you create, choice by choice, moment by moment, day by day. Choose wisely.